If you're looking for a mild lift for your 2007 through 2021 Toyota Tundra, but you want one that's going to transform your ride for your off and on-road adventures, this Eibach Pro Truck Stage 2R coilover kit will be one to look into. Now, this is going to be perfect for the Tundra owner who needs an upgrade for their suspension, whether their shocks and struts are in need of a replacement or the truck just simply needs some more responsiveness for overlanding, high or low speed off-road driving, or even just spirited on-road driving. Now, with bumping up the ride quality in a higher performance kit, this will also allow you options for the front height so you can fine-tune your truck to your needs, regardless if you just want to fit a larger tire or level out the stance. This kit, while making the Tundra look good with a more level and defined stance, depending on your height, will greatly increase your truck's capability no matter what you set them to. Now, the front coilovers will adjust from 0 to 2 3/4 inches in the front, raising the nose of the truck for better ground clearance to clear obstacles and fit up to a 33-inch tire. Now, the build of the shocks and struts with a large construction, variable valving, an external reservoir on the shocks on the back are going to stiffen up the ride thanks to a monotube or nitrogen charged design. Now, the stiffness is going to help with additional weight on the truck for towing, or if you've got a lot on the back in overlanding situations. It's going to reduce body roll and extra movement on the highway. It'll increase your shock travel in the back for better articulation because of this reservoir here. And both of these will withstand some of the toughest abuse because of the build while still offering consistent fade-free performance. The shocks and struts will both be made of an anodized 6061 aluminum material, which is a great material to build performance shocks with, considering that the aluminum is going to dissipate heat more effectively and will keep the shock cooler over time, resulting in consistent performance. Now, again, these are going to have a monotube design and a reservoir design. They're both going to be nitrogen charged, which will give that stiffer feeling, resisting shock fade over time by separating that oil from the gas. Now, one of the notable things about the construction on the rear reservoir shocks here is that this is going to have a small fitting connecting the shock body to the reservoir, so you're not going to get a long line or a piggyback option that's going to stick out. This is going to stay out of the way and not get snagged on any obstacles, so you can have some peace of mind there. You're also getting an aluminum bracket here to keep the reservoir mounted to the body of the shock, so you can have some peace of mind that it's going to stay in place. The kit will also come with new refreshed bushings and sleeves for better longevity and better comfortability out of your ride, and everything that you need in order to install it, including a spinner wrench for adjustability. The full kit will be around $1,500, and I think you're definitely getting what you pay for, and that's a solid price. Now, comparing to other options on the page, you get a couple things with this lift that you may not get with a more budget-friendly solution, like the additional reservoir, the wide range of adjustability for the front of your Tundra, and simply the aluminum build, which doesn't seem like much, but will offer benefits in itself. Now, I think if you want the choice to fine-tune your truck's height to your needs, and you want a kit that you can rely on for whatever tough abuse that your Tundra sees, this is going to be a great option to choose. While install is pretty straightforward, considering that there are minimal components on the table, it's still going to get a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. I would recommend to have some mechanical experience in order to install this yourself, and with the right tools and setup, it should take you about 4 hours to get the job done. Now, at this point, whether you are doing this yourself or you're just curious about the install, we're going to head over to our shop and check out a detailed breakdown of that install on our Tundra here. So that's going to wrap it up for my review. Let's go ahead and get into it.
The tools you'll need for this project are a 1/2-inch drive impact, a 1/2-inch drive ratchet, a 1/2-inch swivel joint, a 12, a 17, and 19 millimeter socket, a shallow 22, and a deep 22 millimeter socket, a 24 millimeter socket, a 7 millimeter wrench, a 14 millimeter wrench, a 17 and a 19 millimeter wrench, a 7/8 or a 22 millimeter wrench, a tie rod separator, a ball joint separator, possibly a tape measure, a bungee cord, a caliper hanging tool, a pair of needle nose pliers, the supplied spanner wrench, a 1/2-inch breaker bar, and a large pry bar. Hi everyone, today we're installing a coilover kit on our Tundra, so let's get started with the uninstall of the stock suspension first. All right, first thing we're going to do is remove these two brackets here for our brake lines. So we're going to use our 12mm socket here and a 10mm socket on this bracket and get those removed just to give us a little bit of extra breathing room. Now we're going to remove the two 19 bolts that hold our caliper mounting bracket to the steering knuckle. So we've got one here at the top and one down here at the bottom. Now we go ahead and slide our caliper off the rotor. And then we're going to use a caliper hanging tool just to hang this on the side to take the stress off of the brake lines. Now we'll slide our rotor off and get it out of the way. Now we're going to go ahead and disconnect our sway bar end links using our 19mm socket. Now it is a good idea to go ahead and disconnect both sway bar end links at the same time. That way when you go to put it back together, the sway bar will be able to move up and down. Now we're going to go ahead and disconnect our tie rod end from our steering knuckle. And to do that, you're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers and a 24mm socket and a tie rod separator tool. We'll use our pliers to go ahead and bend our cotter pin back. Now we're going to use our tie rod separator tool and we're going to clamp it just underneath the steering knuckle here, and we're going to put the shaft on top of the stud for the tie rod end. Thread our bolt down on top of the stud and use our 16mm socket to tighten that down. Now we'll slide our tie rod end out of the knuckle and get it out of the way. Now we can go ahead and disconnect our upper ball joint using our needle nose pliers to remove the cotter pin. And then we're going to just loosen up the 19mm nut that's on the ball joint and use our ball joint separator to separate them from the control arm. Now we're going to use our pry bar to set it up inside the coil here on top of the control arm so that we can press that down and go ahead and remove our nut without everything flying all over the place. Now gently release the pressure while we hold the steering knuckle. Now we go ahead and separate our ball joint from the steering knuckle, and then we'll use a bungee cord to bungee this to the frame just to keep it from falling over. All right, now we're going to use our 14mm wrench and go ahead and loosen up the 4 bolts at the top of our strut to get that ready to uninstall. Now we can use our 22mm socket and our 22mm wrench and remove our lower strut mount bolt and nut. All right, now we can use our pry bar to get underneath our lower part of the strut here and the control arm, and just go ahead and pry that up to get it out of its spot. Now we can go ahead and finish removing the 4 nuts at the top of our strut and go ahead and slide this out. So you're going to want to grab a hold of your strut just to hold it in place so that it doesn't fall on the ground, and go ahead and remove your nuts. Now, if you're doing this on a set of jack stands, it's a good idea to use your floor jack to support the axle before we actually remove the shock. So to remove the shock, what we're going to use is a 7mm wrench to hold the stud still, and a 17mm wrench to remove the nut. Now we're going to use our 17mm wrench and our 17mm socket to remove our lower shock mount and get it out of the way. And now you can repeat that whole process for the other side. All right, now we're ready to install our front strut. And you'll notice on the top of the strut, it's marked where it says towards wheel. So that you want to have this side to the outside towards the wheel. And also, this little indentation here is going to go towards the inside of the truck. So we're going to go ahead and set this up top first, and then we'll put in our lower piece, and then we'll get it all secured. Put our strut up into place, and using one of the supplied bolts and lock washers, we'll go ahead and loosely put that in, just to hold it in place. Now we'll go ahead and get the other 3 started as well. Now, because of the added length of our new strut, we are going to need our pry bar to be able to pry down on the lower control arm in order to get that lower strut mount into the control arm, and so we can put our bolt in. So pry down on our control arm. Get our strut into place, and then slide our bolt in so we can secure our nut. Now we'll put our nut on the end of our bolt. Now we can use our pry bar to push down on our upper control arm so that we can get it inserted into our steering knuckle and get our nut attached. All right, now we can use our 19mm wrench to tighten up our nut and get our slots in our nut to line up with the hole in the ball joint so that we can go ahead and install our cotter key. All right, once you've got your nut tight and the holes lined up, go ahead and insert your cotter pin and then bend down one side to make sure that it doesn't work its way out. Now we can reinstall our tie rod in. Reattach our nut. All right, now we can tighten down that nut with our 24mm socket. All right, and just like our upper control arm, we want to make sure that the slots in the nut are lined up with the hole in the shaft. And then go ahead and insert your cotter pin and bend one side of it over. Bend one side over to make sure it doesn't fall out. And now we can proceed with the rest of the install. Now we go ahead and install our rotor and our caliper. We'll slide our rotor over our wheel studs. Now we can go ahead and install our caliper over top of our rotor. Now we'll tighten down our 2 bolts with our 19mm socket. Now we can secure our brake line bracket to our steering knuckle with the original hardware. And we'll tighten it down with our 12mm socket. Now, because these coilovers are adjustable, it is suggested if you're going to adjust the ride height on them, that do it on the vehicle itself once you've got it installed and everything's tightened up. They do provide a wrench to be able to do this, and basically what you're going to do is stick the end of this wrench into one of these holes in the bottom collar and turn it whichever direction you want. If you want to turn it to raise the ride height, you're going to turn this counterclockwise to raise this collar to go up the bottom. If you want to lower it, then you're going to go the opposite direction. Now, the manufacturer also recommends that you don't go any higher than 3 3/4 of an inch or 95mm from the bottom of the collar here to the top of the body of the mounting point below it. We'll show you that in a minute, but to go ahead and adjust this, all right, so we put our wrench into one of the holes that goes around the bottom of the collar here, and we're going to turn it counterclockwise. Now, once you've adjusted it a little bit, like I said, 1 full turn of the collar equals about 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to go ahead, adjust that a couple of times. So we're going to go ahead and measure it, and we are just shy of the 3 3/4 max height. So we're going to go ahead and adjust this a little bit more to get our maximum height difference, and then we'll go ahead and do the other side. All right, now that we've got our ride height set on one side, you can go ahead and repeat this whole install process for the other side, making sure, of course, that you tighten everything down to manufactured recommended specs. And then what we're going to do, put the wheels and tires back on it, set it down so that we can reinstall our sway bar end links into the lower control arms. Now we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to be using a set of jack stands so that we can actually show you the process of reinstalling the sway bar links. But in your case, what you would do is go ahead and put your wheels and tires back on and then insert your sway bar end links and tighten them all down. Now this next part of reconnecting our sway bar link to our lower control arm, this will definitely test your patience and your resolve. It is a very tight fit because of the extra length that we've gotten off of the new coilover. It makes it very difficult and very time consuming to try and get this back in place. So what you're going to need is a large pry bar and a 19mm socket on a 3/8 ratchet. So what we're going to do is we're going to press down on the sway bar to try and get it lined up. Once we get the bolt started, then we're going to use our ratchet to go ahead and lock it in. Now the only thing that you have to be careful of when you do this, because of all the tension that's on the sway bar and the end link, is making sure that you don't cross thread the bolt going in. So if you start to tighten it up with the ratchet and it feels like it's binding, back it off. And like I said, It will test you. You will do this several times trying to get it to be correct and work, but with a little patience, you can get it done. All right, now as you can see, I've already got the bolt started from the front side anyway. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and press down on our pry bar on top of the sway bar and very carefully start threading in the bolt for the sway bar link. And like I said, if you feel any resistance at all and it starts to bind up, stop and back it off. And now you can repeat that process for the other side. And now that we've got everything hooked up, we'll go ahead and tighten up the bolts at the top of our strut and complete our installation. So we'll use our 17mm wrench to tighten those up. Now we're ready to install our rear shock. And when you install these, you want to make sure of a couple of things. One, the reservoir is towards the top, not pointing down. And the other thing is the reservoir needs to be away from the axle. So when we put this on the driver's side, this is going to be towards the front of the vehicle. Now we also will be reusing our OEM bushings and washers from the removal of the original shock. So you want to make sure when you take these off, take a good look at the bushings, make sure they're not cracked or damaged in any way. Then go ahead and put the lower set of bushings on and do the same thing with the top. So now we can go ahead and install the top of our shock with our bushing. Finger tight the nut on top. And now we can go ahead and install the bottom. All right, now we get our bottom of our shock lined up, and you may need to use a small pry bar to help lift this up into place so that the holes line up. Once you've got it in, go ahead and insert your bolt. Reattach your nut. And now we'll go ahead and tighten down our lower shock mount. So we'll be using our 17mm wrench and our 17mm socket to tighten this up. Now we're going to use our 18mm wrench to tighten down our top nut. And you don't want to over tighten this, you just want to tighten it down enough so that the bushings themselves start to compress and bulge out. Once you reach that point, you're good to go. And now you can repeat that whole process for the other side. And that wraps up our review and install of the Eibach Pro Truck Coilover Kit Stage 2R for your 07 to 21 Tundra. Thanks for watching, and remember, for all things Tundra, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.